You have now stepped inside the cage with me, your host, Joe Sumo. And here we spend the next hour talking mixed martial arts, nothing but. And there's a lot to talk about. As a fight fan and just as an enthusiast or just a casual fan, a lot has been going on. And really it all has to start with this outstanding fight card that the UFC and Fox Sports 1 managed to put together over this past Saturday in Boston. Brilliant job done by everybody involved, as this card was stacked from beginning to end, and a lot of intriguing fights that end in a lot of spectacular fashions. I was just impressed. I just can't, as I'm a loss for words. It was intense. It was great. From huge upsets to big finishes. Up and down, this card was outstanding. I'm pretty sure it was everything that the UFC wanted and more. It got great numbers, and it kind of really shows what kind of fans the UFC have, because it's not as if this fight card was on Fox or on like ESPN, or if it was a pay-per-view buy. It was on a brand new channel that literally came into effect that day, the day of the fight card, Saturday. Before then, it was, I think, the Speed Network. And, I mean, for most fans to find it, they would have had to have dug and look around to try to see what's going on with this brand new channel that's not even in existence. And yet they still managed to find it. They still managed to tune in, and it ended up getting great numbers. I want to say over 1 million something viewers. It beat out a lot of other channels in their like test market range. I don't know exactly who those are. I'm pretty sure like males between 20 and 40 or something of that nature. And they just did a great job putting together a great card. The card was stacked, though. It wasn't just about trying to put on a big card. The stacked card had great fights. Usually, or at least sometimes, when you stack a card with a bunch of big names and a bunch of intriguing fights, you tend to get some boring finishes just because guys don't want to lose. Guys play a little more conservative. That was not the case with this card. Whether it was the fighters that were in it or just the, I don't know, what was in the air that night. But these guys all came out and blasted, and it was fantastic. Great card, and Boston was a great crowd that night. I do want to take a second to go over that card, but I think I'm going to do that a little bit later, because today we have my co-host and good friend Layziethesavage coming on. He's going to come on here and talk a little mixed martial arts with me like we usually do, go back and forth, shooting the shit and whatnot. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on in the news. So, Bellator, as we know, finished with the legalities and legal issues in bringing Eddie Alvarez back into the cage, or do they even call it a cage in Bellator? I'm not sure. Well, they got him back, but in getting him back, they decided to let go one of their biggest prospects. Go figure, Ben Askren. This guy had been dominating the 170-pound division over in Bellator, and Bellator is now willing to let him go to seek, greener pastures, as you would say. And more than likely, even though he had his bitter Twitter quarrel with Dana White, I have a big feeling that he's going to end up coming over to the UFC. One, because this guy has an obnoxiously good wrestling background, and he manages to take everybody down and get them out of their element and beat them. And he's made a fool out of everybody he's fought so far in Bellator. Well, come over to the 170-pound division in the UFC, and that division's stacked with great wrestlers. I mean, obviously you've got GSP. He doesn't even have a wrestling background, yet he's the most dominant wrestler in mixed martial arts. You've still got guys like Hendricks, Koscheck, Lawler, who has a wrestling background, I believe. And other guys, Damian Maia with a jiu-jitsu background, a lot of good ground guys, Nick Diaz, who can pose certain threats and test, I think, Ben unlike guys inside Bellator can. Because let's be honest here, Bellator is doing a good job of building its brand, but they certainly, I don't think, want anybody around who's going to make stagnant fights or not be entertaining. I think they're really pushing towards having explosive fights with big finishes, and that's something that Ben doesn't quite provide a promotion. He's really, I don't want to say a one-trick pony, but he's the kind of guy who's, you know what he's going to do, and yet you can't stop it. Nobody with striking power has managed to take Ben out of his element. Instead, Ben Askren takes them out of their element, brings them to the ground, beats up on them from top position, and just kind of wrestles the heck out of them until they're demoralized. And it's not always the most exciting thing to watch from a fan standpoint. And I think for Bellator and Bjorn, they also know that it's not entertaining from a fan standpoint. So they're going to go ahead and give him a chance to, seek other options. And I think he's going to get him. I think he's going to get a shot in the UFC. I hope he does. I know Dana and him have not seen eye to eye in the past. Dana saying that if you want to go to sleep, you don't take Ambien. You watch Ben Askren fight, which is hilarious. I agree to an extent, but I also think that coming over to the 170 UFC division, he's going to fight other guys with great wrestling backgrounds, and it's going to really put him to the test and see if he's got the ability to make it on the big show. So, too bad for Bellator. I think it's not a smart move letting go probably your biggest prospect right now outside of Michael Chandler and now re-signing Eddie Alvarez. But, that's the fight game, and if you're not going to stick with them, let him go. Can't wait to see you in the UFC, Ben. Good job, buddy. What else is going on out there in the MMA news? We have Lyoto Machida dropping down to middleweight. He's going to go down to 185, where his big buddy Anderson Silva had been champion for many a years. But now that he is no longer the champion, I think Lyoto Machida is going to drop down and maybe give it a chance at the 185 weight class and make a run for the title. With that being said, he's going to first have to go through Tim Kennedy. Tim Kennedy is his first matchup at 185. Dana White announced it. It's going to be at the Fight for the Troops event later on this year. And I don't think it's a good move for Lyoto Machida, in all honesty. Well, I don't know. That's me taking the side of a wrestler. I think Tim Kennedy's one of those gritty dudes who doesn't, kind of like Chael Sonnen to a lesser degree, he doesn't mind, tucking his chin and going in to get his hands on you. And though Lyoto Machida's never really shown to be too affected by wrestlers, his last loss was against a wrestler. And unless Lyoto Machida, develops a couple ways to stop these takedowns and stop from being smothered, I think Tim Kennedy can give him a lot of problems at 185. I think it's going to be, I certainly believe it'll be a tough task for Lyoto Machida in his first fight at 185. He definitely can beat Tim Kennedy. Maybe I'm too high on the guy, but I don't know. It's hard for me to believe a guy who doesn't have any wrestling background, who tends to try to play the point game with his karate, is gonna be able to run through or at least have an easy time beating a guy like Tim Kennedy, who's just all grits. He's just a tough as nails kind of guy who's going to go in there and make sure that you're in a fight. So it's a big move. If he gets past Tim Kennedy, I think it's certainly a bright spot in Lyoto Machida's career at 185 to start off. At that point, you can really kind of put him against any other options that are in the top 5. I think it certainly gets him up there. But his first task is going to be a tough one. I can't wait to see that fight. I think it'll be good. Right now, I'm going with Tim Kennedy. We'll talk about it later, though. What else is going on? The Korean Zombie. Oh, man, this is a tough one. One of my favorite fighters. He had been out for about a year nursing, I think, a surgery that he had or from a shoulder injury. And he came back and he fought Jose Aldo for the title. And he ended up losing by TKO. He couldn't go on, I think, in the 4th round. The guy his shoulder went out of socket, the same shoulder that he had surgery on. On top of that, he ended up having his orbital bone broken by Jose Aldo. All bad news. It seems like he's going to have surgery on the orbital bone now. He's going to have surgery on the shoulder again, and it's just rough to see. The Korean Zombie, he's one of those just entertaining guys. You love to watch fight. Very fan-friendly style. And now he's not going to be around for probably another year, I would have to believe. Shoulder and orbital bone surgery, that's going to take some time to heal. And it's really unfortunate. I was hoping that, I know that he was going to have to take some time after that loss because of the shoulder injury and then the apparent eye injury that showed up afterwards, or at least what they told us. But I was really hoping that, injury-free, he could bounce back and get another fight. Because I like watching the Korean Zombie fight. I don't know many people that don't enjoy watching the Korean Zombie. He is just an entertaining fighter. He's got a kick-ass nickname. It's really unfortunate to not have him around for about another year, possibly. I really hope he gets better soon. Because he's one of my favorite fighters. And I just, kind of hurts my heart. There's certain guys I just don't want to see not fighting, and I feel like all those guys that I don't want to see not fighting are not fighting. It makes me sad. I've already have to deal with Nick Diaz retiring again, and now I got to deal with the Korean Zombie being out for probably an extended period of time because of his multiple injuries. Hurts me heart. Anyways, we're taking a quick break. We come back. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about these fighter rankings. What's going on out there, guys? Who's moving up? Who's moving down? And is it legitimate? I'm not sure. Neither are you. So we'll talk about it.
Radio Depaul is
awesome,
engaging, ballin', an opportunity for me to voice my opinion.
Really cool, really laid back.
A big community of everything.
Radio Depaul is Chicago's college connection.
I don't recycle. We can just find another planet for your kids to live on,
Noted non-recycler Tommy Crenshaw talks about the future.
Oh, I can totally see finding another planet that can support life when ours fills up with trash.
Log on to yougottabekidding.org and learn about all the ways you can recycle, unless you're into lame excuses like Tommy's.
Hey, recycling's just not my thing. Starting over on a new planet? Now that's exciting.
Don't be that guy, unless you want people looking at you funny. Log on to yougottabekidding.org.
And then I brought her into Red Mango last week to try it out, and now she won't shut up about it. She wants to go there every day. I should be getting really annoyed with her by now, except the yogurt is so good.
On the berries, and then we can put like a layer.
With their wide variety of all-natural frozen yogurt, over 55 toppings to choose from, your Red Mango options are endless.
You can put on top too.
So stop by the Lincoln Park Red Mango at 844 West Armitage, just east of the Armitage Brown Line station. It probably won't be your last visit.
And then maybe we'll have...
Welcome back. Excuse me. We're back in the cage, and like I said, a lot's been going on in mixed martial arts over the past week, 2 weeks, especially with this huge fight card over the weekend. And I guess I'll do a spoiler alert because I haven't gotten to the card yet. But Chael Sonnen wins his fight against Shogun. Spoiler if you haven't known this yet, but. In winning, he decides to do what Chael Sonnen does best and get on the microphone and talk the talk. And stealing the show last Saturday, not just in victory, but in his awesome victory speech, he calls out Wanderlei Silva. Now, this is nothing new. Chael Sonnen has been calling out Wanderlei Silva for quite a while now, but he has made it as public as possible, taking his victory speech inside the cage to personally address Wanderlei Silva, disgrace him, call him out, call him names. It was beautiful. It was poetic, and it apparently had got the attention of Wanderlei Silva. It sounds like, from what Dana White says, is this fight is going to happen, UFC 167, as a co-main event. Now, here's the kicker, or the kind of the thing on the side with this fight is apparently Dana White said as long as Wanderlei Silva is healthy. Now, I don't quite understand that. I don't know if Wanderlei Silva is dealing with injuries right now, if there's something wrong with him, if something's nagging, because I haven't heard anything about Wanderlei Silva being injured. I don't know why that would come up. It's not like as if he said, Chael Sonnen versus Wanderlei Silva at 167, co-main event, as long as Chael or Wanderlei isn't hurt. But he just calls out Wanderlei. So I don't know what's going on, if there's something wrong with Wanderlei that they haven't told us or that I'm oblivious to. But, barring any setbacks, we're going to finally get to see these two clash. They've had a little issue for quite a while now. It really kind of stems all the way from all the trash talk that Chael Sonnen has done in the past about Brazil. I doubt Chael Sonnen hates Brazil. I think a lot of it has to do with promoting fights, but he's managed to get under the skin of a lot of Brazilians. He did it with Anderson Silva. I'm pretty sure he's pissed off Shogun, even though Shogun says, he doesn't mind the trash talk. He just doesn't like, his country being talked about, though he said it in a very polite manner. And I'm sure Wanderlei doesn't like it either. There's even a video out there of them two, Wanderlei Silva and Chael Sonnen, in a truck. I want to say it was for the filming of The Ultimate Fighter or for some sort of UFC event, where Wanderlei is trying to scold Chael Sonnen like a child, telling him that what he's saying is bad, it's not good, you don't talk about my country. And Chael Sonnen playing it off like, yeah, I get it. Okay, you're right. Really with no snappy comeback like Chael Sonnen usually would have. But like I said, this thing stems from a few years ago, and it seems it's been building up ever since. And I think Chael Sonnen's finally going to get his wish. He's finally going to get his fight against Wanderlei Silva, and I think it's going to be another lopsided event. When he goes against these Brazilian fighters with no wrestling backgrounds, it seems to be where he shines. And though he has lost to Anderson Silva twice, let's also keep in mind that in his fights against Anderson Silva, he was really winning 5.5 rounds. It wasn't until the final minute of his first fight against Anderson Silva that he dropped the ball. And it wasn't until the second round against Anderson Silva in the second fight that he was actually caught with a couple clean shots and put down. So besides that, he was dominating with his wrestling, and he dominated Shogun with his wrestling. And I don't see him having an issue with Wanderlei, who has no wrestling in his background. So I think he's picking his fights wisely. I believe that if he beats Wanderlei Silva, Chael Sonnen that is, he's going to probably end up trying to call out Vitor Belfort if Belfort beats Dan Henderson in their fight, I believe, in Brazil coming up pretty soon. I don't know. Maybe he calls him out if he loses to Dan Henderson. I know he wants to take out like every Brazilian that's in the top 5, except for Wanderlei. He just wants to take him out for fun. But Chael Sonnen is out there. He's talking his trash, and he's getting his fights, and he's finally got his fight against Wanderlei Silva. I think it'll be great leading up to the fight. The stare downs, the trash talk from Chael, it's going to be magical. But I think once the fight starts, you're going to get typical Sonnen versus Brazilian fight where he just kind of, smothers guys. And I don't think Wanderlei has the defense to stop it. What else is going on? Because of this huge fight card over the weekend, we've had a lot of things changing in the rankings, a lot of stuff going on in that department. But before I get to that, I'm going to get my buddy Layziethesavage on the phone here with me, and we're going to cover all this good stuff together. So give me a minute. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with my co-host, Layziethesavage.
There's nothing like Chicago staples, deep dish pizza, the Crosstown Classic, and my favorite, sandwiches. Costello's has been serving Chicago since 1997. With locations in 4 Chicago neighborhoods, wide delivery zones, and ordering online, there's no reason not to indulge. Come to Costello's for sandwiches, fresh salads, and hot and cold sides, including their famous Chipotle mac and cheese. And did I mention their 2 new stores near DePaul at 2235 North Lincoln and in Wrigleyville at 3349 North Sheffield? So come on into Costello's for a classic taste of Chicago.
That's the sound of your classmate receiving an attachment of you posing in your underwear. Your ex-boyfriend forwarding the picture to his friends. It being sent to your coach. And worst of all, your dad. All because of the time you posted those pictures on your profile. Anything you post online, anyone can see. So think before you post. For more information, visit www.cybertipline.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Justice, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and the Ad Council.
Radio Depaul is
Awesome.
Engaging. Ballin'. An opportunity for me to voice my opinion.
Really cool, really laid back.
a big community of everything.
Radio Depaul is Chicago's college connection.
All right, folks, we're back inside the cage with your host, Joe Sumo. That's me. And I promise you, I am not a big man. I am not a sumo wrestler. I'm actually quite slim and tall in stature. But it's the nickname that I've given myself. Well, actually, it's been branded to me by friends. So I'm going to live with it. Anyways, we're waiting to get my buddy Layziethesavage on the line here. Give me 1 second. All right, we're back on air. This is The Cage, and with me today, like usual, good buddy of mine out there in Vegas, getting it done, Layziethesavage. What's going on, brother?
What up?
My dude, it sounds like you just woke up, and I don't mind it. How you doing?
Living that West Coast life, man. We don't wake up till 10:30 around here.
Yeah, man. I know the 2-hour difference probably hurts you, especially because they don't call you lazy because it sounds cool, right?
That's right. That is absolutely right.
Oh, my man. How's life treating you? What's been going on? I see you've been on the road quite a bit, working with Rhonda and other fighters. How's things treating you?
Yeah, good. Everything is good. She just dipped out to Bulgaria. She's doing the Expendables 3 out there. She's going to be gone for like 6 weeks, and so I won't see her for a little bit, but she's stoked about that. I need to get to Stockton soon to go check up on my boys up there and see how they're doing. But I don't know, man. Usually when I kick it with these guys, I'm kind of becoming less of a reporter and more of just a friend who hangs around, and if I happen to get some cool shit for people to watch, then cool. If not, I'm content, just being friends with these guys. A lot of people think that I'm a reporter and journalist, and that when I go and hang out with them or when I go and do stuff that I'm going to, run back to the computer and spill the beans and everything. And that's not the case, man. If people knew a fraction of the stuff that I knew, they would trip the fuck out,
Certainly.
But so when people ask me about my friend, and those guys and stuff like that, they say everything's doing good, everybody's doing good, But truth be told, I'm sure there's plenty of drama that would keep the internet dweebs foaming at the mouth.
Certainly.
I can't tell you how many times I get messages like every day, like, when's Nick coming back? Who's Nick fighting next? How's he doing? And I'm just like, dude, leave me alone. Like, why would I tell you? It's just like, I'm not telling anybody. If I was going to tell somebody, I would use it to like build a name for myself, and
yeah,
and that kind of thing. But that's not what I'm about. So
let me ask you something.
But yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, to a degree. But since you're talking about, how you're hanging out with the Diaz brothers out there in Stockton, and you do get some footage, but they are friends of yours. I mean, what is it like? I guess from a journalist standpoint, or for somebody who's invested in the news aspect of mixed martial arts, to go out there with these guys who are your friends. I mean, how do you walk that fine line of being the friend but also trying to give that information to the masses that really eventually gets you paid?
That's a good question. Let me tell you something. It's a fucking nightmare. It's a nightmare because Nick and Nate both hate cameras. They both hate the media. And I even tried to explain to them a bunch of times, like, listen, guys, you're my friends. I'm not going to make you look bad, you know? But to them, you know, they would rather have nothing at all and have people wondering about, you know, what's going on in their lives rather than just exposing them and people being like, oh, well, they're not that interesting, you know? People want to know about things they have no idea about. So I think that's, for instance, I was coming up to Stockton one time and I was talking to Nate and I was like, yeah, I'm going to be up there in a couple weeks, you know, I want to stop by the gym, say what's up, you know. He was like, cool, everything's cool. He's like, are you working? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, are you working? Are you reporting and stuff? And I'm like, no, but that just gives you a little taste of what his mindset's like, you know?
Right.
Like, cool, come kick it, everything, you know, damn, we'd love to have you, you know, come hang out, blah, blah, blah. But if you're working, immediately they get sketched out, you know?
Certainly.
So, I don't know. It's tough, man. You know, people always tell me, oh, you get the best Nick and Nate Diaz interviews and blah, blah, blah. And I always tell people, dude, I've never interviewed Nick or Nate one time. You know, because I am a friend and I don't want to press them for interviews, and I'd rather, you know, just, you know, enjoy their company of you know, of being a friend. They're cool dudes to hang out with, you know, but they hate that the world wants to know what's going on in their personal lives, you know? Right.
Now, I got a question for you. Let's digress a little bit here, but kind of stay on topic with Nick Diaz. Before Lyoto Machida was given the chance to fight Tim Kennedy at the Battle for the Troops or Fight for the Troops event, there were a lot of stuff circulating out online about Dana White offering Nick Diaz a fight against Lyoto Machida at 185. I don't know if you heard about this, and if you did, I mean, it's not going to happen now, obviously, but how did you feel about that fight possibly happening?
That's the first time a Nick Diaz fight has ever been announced, and I was kind of like, really? That was the very first time. You know, it's like usually people are excited to see Nick fight anyone. And I think that, you know, once they had both gotten in the cage together, I think I would have still been excited because, you know, it's just Nick Diaz fighting, and that's exciting by itself. He could shadow box and people would still watch. You know what I'm saying?
I have.
So, yeah, exactly. So, but I wasn't stoked about the matchup, that's for sure. But I don't know. It's hard for me to say I'm excited to see, you know, any fight at this point, you know, other than the rematches that he's lost. People talk about wanting to see him fight Matt Brown, and I'm like, dude, Matt Brown is not ready for Nick Diaz, and nor does he deserve a shot at Nick Diaz yet. He's on his way. He's doing great.
Okay.
For the kid,
you got to wait a second there. Look, I'm a big Nick Diaz fan, more than anybody. I mean, besides maybe yourself as a friend of his. But with that being said, Nick Diaz is riding a 2-fight losing streak in the UFC.
Okay, but wait, hold on.
Wait.
You say losing streak, bro. You can't say losing streak because everybody knows he won that fight against Carlos Condit. And then he fought the best in the world. He fought, you know, George St. Pierre.
Okay, but wait, Mike, listen, give me a second here. I agree. I thought he beat Condit, but that doesn't matter. He lost the fight. It's an L on his record. He lost against George St. Pierre in decisive fashion. He's ranked number 7 in his weight class. Now, Matt Brown is on a 6-fight winning streak. And though a lot of the names he's fought aren't the most compelling, he did just knock out Mike Pyle, who is, I mean, a really good fighter. And I'm not saying that they should put those two together, but you can't tell me that's not an intriguing matchup. Both guys like to brawl. Both guys got awesome fighting styles that make for fan-friendly fights. How could you not make that fight right now?
Because I think Matt Brown is literally one fight away from a top 3 or 4. I don't agree with Nick being ranked at number 7. I think that's horse shit. But Matt Brown's not even ranked yet. And
okay.
Yeah, he beat Mike Pyle, but it's not like he went in there and dominated Mike Pyle for 3 rounds. He caught Mike Pyle with a punch. Pyle went down, got knocked out. You can't really tell much from a fighter when a fight ends like that. But personally, I would have liked to seen this happen. I would have liked to seen Matt Brown fight Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald fight Nick Diaz, because there's history there with Nate and the loss that Nate had to Rory. And I know for a fact Nick does not like Rory at all. At all. I don't think either one of the Diaz brothers likes Rory at all. But that's a fight that makes sense. Then, if you want to have the winners fight each other, that's cool, because then it sets up for a potential Nick Diaz-Robbie Lawler rematch, or Matt Brown finally beats Robbie Lawler, who's a credible opponent, and who would, elevate him to fight one of the top three guys if he beats Robbie Lawler, which would be Nick or Rory, whoever wins that fight. To me, that's what makes the most sense. That's what would sell the most pay-per-views, and those would be the most entertaining fights.
No, I agree.
No,
I think it's a good idea. The 170.
I don't think Matt versus Nick right now is a great idea. I just think that it's a fight away, maybe 2 fights away.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I agree. I think the little tournament style right there would be entertaining. You definitely do have some intriguing fights built up there. I wouldn't mind seeing the Lawler Diaz too. I think that would be an awesome fight as well. But
those two have kind of been, they were both in Strikeforce together. Nick was bouncing around 170, 185. Robbie was around the same weight. They could have fought back then. It just wasn't the right time and place. I think that if, Matt versus Robbie happens and Rory versus Nick happens, and you see Nick and Robbie rematch, then that's when it was supposed to happen. Otherwise, fans need to just move on from that matchup,
Certainly. So let's take a second now, and I know that you had to have watched these fights this past Saturday, like I did.
Yeah, they were great.
Fantastic. I mean, they couldn't have put together a better card with better endings than they did for this opening of Fox Sports 1. But I have some intriguing storylines that came across because of these fights that I want to shoot past you and see what you think. First things first, let's talk the most hyped up fighter since, God knows who, since Anderson came to the UFC, since Brock Lesnar came to the UFC. Conor McGregor. He beats Marcus Brimage in spectacular fashion in his first fight. He gets his second fight in the UFC, which has tons of hype behind it, and he goes up against Max Holloway. Ends up putting on a very, technical, strong performance, beating Max in all facets of the fight. What do you think of this guy, and where do you think he's at right now in his career?
Well, I had heard about Conor McGregor as the Irish Nick Diaz. They call him Mick Diaz on Middle Easy. I don't know if I agree with that.
I actually tweeted you guys that during the fight, because during his fight against Max, he kept putting his arms up, similar to Nick Diaz, kind of like, "What, homie, what?" And I thought it was hilarious. I ended up tweeting it to Middle East. I was like, "This guy is Conor McDiaz." I think it's hilarious.
That's how I found out about him. So I checked him out because I had saw, somebody, Middle East had posted an article saying that this is the Irish Nick Diaz or the Irish Diaz brother. And so, of course, I had to watch the fight. So I click play, and I'm watching his King of the Cage bout. And from the fucking minute the bell rang, I was thoroughly entertained. And I was like, this kid, he's going to be something, And he comes over to the UFC, beats Marcus Brimage. I knew I had a really good feeling he would. But I wanted to see more of him. I wanted to see him go 3 rounds, to be honest. I wanted to see what his ground game was looking like. And I tell you what, I think I got more out of his 3-round fight than I did out of his Brimage knockout. I got to see where this kid is skill-wise.
Certainly.
In all areas,
Yeah.
And I think that gave us a good look at him and gave us the chance to better assess him. And I believe that. I think especially at the 145-pound division, I believe that he matches up great with anyone. Him versus Cub Swanson would be, I think,
that'd be awesome.
I would honestly, I think I might pay to watch that. Like I would, if they headlined a pay-per-view, I think I would pay to watch that. It's
Certainly.
a very exciting fight, and the winner should automatically get a shot at Jose Aldo next. in my opinion.
I don't think that Conor deserves to be put up there just yet.
That's what's bullshit, though, because, Anderson Silva came on the scene, smashed Bulls, got a title shot in second fight, beat Chris Leben, gets a title shot. What's the difference with Conor McGregor, who is a former champion? Say, give the Gilbert Melendez situation the same example. Gilbert was the champ in Strikeforce, came over, very first fight, got to fight for the title. That's not exactly happening with Conor McGregor, but he's not too far off, in my opinion.
But you know what? I don't agree with the way Anderson Silva was handed a title shot, similar to the way I don't agree how when Brock Lesnar came over, I think he only had 2 fights and was given a title shot. I don't like that personally. I believe that there's guys that are in the UFC already who have worked their way up to where they're at in the rankings and to earn a title shot. And I like Conor McGregor. I do believe he's fought 2 very strong opponents in the UFC that should put him in place to to fight a top 5 guy. I think not Cub Swanson. He needs to fight somebody else at the top of the division.
Well, Diego Brandao, the Ultimate Fighter Brazil winner, has been calling him out, and I think he wants to do it in Vegas on that
Brandao versus Conor
New Year's card. Brandao versus Conor, Brandao called him out on Twitter. So that's a fight that I could entertain. I would like to see, and that you'd be able to sit back and assess where he goes next if he's dominant in that fight. But if he dominates Diego Brandao and goes in there and wins decisively, I think that Ricardo Lamas or Cub Swanson,
Well, that I agree with. That makes perfect sense to me. You can beat
poor Ricardo Lamas is just getting pushed to the back of the bus, worse than Rosa Parks, and that poor guy is probably sitting there like, what about me? And he's definitely deserving, of the title shot. But the thing is, people like bright and shiny things, and Conor McGregor is bright and shiny, and he's new, and people are attracted to it, and I think that he'll end up getting the title shot because of that faster than somebody, say, like Ricardo Lamas, who has to come through the ranks, who's been busting his tail in the WEC and all that other stuff for years, and comes over here and looks really good, but is just not enough, Meanwhile, you got Conor McGregor comes over, starts saying fuck this, fuck that in a cool Irish accent, and everybody's like, oh, I like this guy. So immediately the UFC is going to, they're going to want to push him more than anyone else.
And he's wearing his outfits looking nice and damper, and he's just always out there in the public eye. Conor McGregor, you're right. He is the new bright and shiny thing in the UFC. He's made a fan of me as well as tons of other people here in the States, and I do think he deserves the hype. He certainly showed it against a really strong opponent in Max Holloway. I think he needs one more strong.
Max Holloway's a killer, dude. I mean, he's a tough little... Dude, Max Holloway is like... You're a tough little Hawaiian kid that you just like, a little skinny BJ Penn almost. I mean, not as far as skill-wise, but just that mentality, like, let's throw cracks, let's bang, that kind of thing,
Yes.
Tough kid.
Max is no joke. Max Holloway is not a slouch.
I thought this was going to be a decent test for Conor. I didn't expect him to just dominate Max Holloway like he did. Then again, Max did break his foot in the very first kick in the very first round, so I felt bad for him for that, but, that kind of shit happens in fights.
Yeah.
Conor, you got to adapt and that kind of thing, but I don't know. I just think that Conor is beyond that skill set.
Yeah.
I think that he proved that he is on a different level. Excuse me. He, not a skill set, but he proved he's on a different level on Saturday night.
Now,
and here's a fun story.
Yeah.
Before Conor fought, what's his name on Saturday night? Max Holloway. I messaged Conor on Facebook and I told him, hey, you should come train with Nick and Nate, because I had talked to Nick first, and I talked to Nick and I was like, hey, you've seen this Irish kid, Conor McGregor, we should get him out to come train. And he's like, yeah, I think I know who that is, whatever. So I talked to Conor and I was like, hey, Nick's here in Vegas, he's looking for someone to train with. Would you like to set up a training day? And, Conor was like, yeah, I'm going to the gym right now, but, we run on Nick's schedule when we're hanging out with Nick, so Nick does what he wants when he wants. So that kind of fizzled through and didn't end up happening. But then I was talking to Rhonda, and Rhonda was like, shit, yeah, tell Connor to come to Venice. Let's train for a week. And so we were going to go to Venice, all of us together, me, Connor, and Jessica and Rhonda, and we're going to stay at Rhonda's house for a week like we did with Uriah Hall, and, just film some cool stuff and get some good training in Southern California. And he had to do a dethroned photo shoot, so that ended up falling through. So he's got the open invitation to go train in Stockton with Nick and Nate. As long as he stays away from 155 pounds, he's okay to come up there and train. And those guys don't offer that to anybody. So how cool would it be to see Nick, Nate, and Conor McGregor all training together in one day, and Gilbert Melendez? I mean, I think that would be fucking awesome to watch.
I personally would love it. I'm a super fan of all those guys, and to see them train together, get some good footage of that would be special. I think that'd be really cool. And I mean,
not to mention how hilarious it would be if Rhonda and Conor were hanging out. Just the two of them would fucking crack me up.
Yeah, two people that aren't afraid to speak their mind, I think would make for some good footage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're talking about big up-and-coming fighters like Conor McGregor, and it makes me jump back to this Fox Sports 1 card because it was stacked, and another big up-and-coming fighter who's really keeps making a name for himself and a real case for a title fight.
Can I guess?
I'll give you one guess, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, you said title fight, so I assume you're not talking about Steven Seiler, who I was damn impressed with, and no one is talking about that kid. Little nerdy-looking computer. It looks like he's coming over to fix your computer, and then he whoops your ass. I was really impressed. And no one's talking about that kid, and I think they should be.
Yeah, Steven Seiler did look nice. He made quick work of Mike Brown, but that's not exactly who I'm talking about. I think you might have an idea, though. Are you going to give yourself a try here, or should I just go ahead and blow the roof off on this one?
I give up. I'm not stoned yet.
No? Okay. Michael McDonald. All right?
Oh, yeah. He had a title shot, though.
I think he's working his way back to it. I mean, the guy, I think in his first fight against Renan Barão, I don't think he was prepared for it. He's young. I mean, the kid's 22 years old, and he's getting a title shot already. But he now I think he just looks leaps and bounds better in this fight against Brad Pickett, who is as tough as nails, and he goes out there and he bangs with this guy and puts in a lot of work. I think that title shot came too soon. I think that after this fight against Brad Pickett, he deserves one more big fight, which could be against another guy who was on this card. And I'm just trying to get your opinion. How are you feeling about this Michael McDonald kid? Do you think he deserves another shot again sooner than later? And if not, who do you think he should be fighting?
First of all, Michael McDonald's from the 209, so he automatically goes well for me. From Modesto, he is a little church-going. We have those kind of kids where I'm from, back up north. Like, you have your shit kickers, your farm boys. You have your gangsters, that kind of thing. And then you got your church boys. And Michael McDonald fits directly into that category. Like, I know exactly the type of person he is, how he was brought up. I have plenty of friends like that. So I like the kid. I think he's genuinely a good kid, and I can tell is what I'm saying. His skill set is damn impressive. Unfortunately, you're right, though. He did get that title shot a little too soon, and Renan Barão is a little bit of a monster.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, just tiny bit. McDonald, he'll fight for the title again. He might fight for the title a couple times, to be honest, because what happens when Dominic Cruz comes back?
Yeah, that'll change the game up a little bit. Dominic Cruz it's kind of like the what would you call it? He's just kind of like that thing that's laying in the background that really is going to mix everything up once he comes back. But I mean, Michael McDonald, I think, has proven himself a top 3 fighter in the weight class, even after a loss to Barão. Because this fight against Brad Pickett, who's, once again, like I said, a tough guy, he really went in there and did work against this guy. And now it's putting him in a place where he might be fighting a number 1 contender for a title shot.
Well, the fight to make right now, I think, is at 135 pounds for Michael McDonald is against Uriah Faber.
Certainly.
I think that,
which is what I was going to get at.
Yeah, I think that creates the biggest buzz, and will provide the proper path to, a legitimate title shot. So, and that's a fight that I think both guys would be interested in.
I think they both spoke about that at the press conference after Fox Sports 1. They both, I think, acknowledged that fight is probably coming. But, all right, besides the Michael McDonald hype train, I got one guy who's hyped a lot, and I'm really curious about where he stands now in the UFC. Joe Lauzon, kind of like the king of bonuses in mixed martial arts. A lot of hype behind him. A lot of people saying that Michael Johnson is possibly going to get cut from the UFC if he loses this past Saturday night. And instead, he comes out there and destroys Joe Lauzon for 3 rounds. I mean, first of all, did you see that coming? And second of all, where does this put Joe Lauzon and Michael Johnson now in their careers?
It kind of hurt my heart a little bit to see Joe get beat up like that. I like Joe. Joe's a good dude. He's always been really cool to me. And I definitely didn't expect him to lose that fight. I thought that would be a fight that he would take Mike down and tap him out fairly easy. I don't think, to me, when a fighter looks that off in a fight when previously they've looked amazing against, I don't want to knock Michael Johnson, but Joe has fought better. Am I wrong? Am I right?
I mean, I could definitely say he's fought a lot of good guys. I think Michael Johnson's kind of underestimated, underappreciated in the UFC, but I would agree that Joe Lauzon's fought better.
Michael Johnson, he said, I'm looking him up right now. His record has been shaky, though. He hasn't been consistent. Joe, aside from losing from Anthony Pettis, was rather consistent. And I don't know. As far as, I'm looking at his record right now. Michael Johnson lost to Reza Madadi, who just got locked up for stealing handbags. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did hear about that. I'm surprised. I totally forgot about that. I should have brought that up earlier. What a shame. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of the guy, but you're fighting in the biggest promotion in the world. You think you'd get your act together, and
but dude, you're not making that much money at that level. That's what people don't understand. People think, you fight for the UFC, you must be fucking rich. It's absolutely not the case, especially at Reza's level, or however you say his name. I wouldn't believe that kid's making more than 15 and 15 to fight. If I had to guess,
maybe you're probably right, but still, I think once you reach this level, I mean, I know you're not getting paid as much as other professionals at this level in their careers, like baseball, football, soccer players, but still, you got to hold yourself to, I think, a certain standard. And stealing purses to make ends meet, I mean, the guy could have opened a gym and to make a little more scratch if he really needed it. I don't think he should have been out there, stealing purses. It sounds like something from a juvenile would do, not a grown man.
Hey man, we don't know what's going on in his personal life, what he needs the money for. Obviously, theft is something that no rational human being should ever resort to. But
anyways, we digress. What about Michael Johnson?
Desperate measures. Oh, back to Michael Johnson. I mean, don't forget that James Krause choked him out with a triangle. Don't forget Michael Johnson lost to Jonathan Brookins. He lost to Paul Sass. Miles Jury,
who's a beast. Miles Jury's nice.
But he's been up and down, as opposed to, Joe Lauzon, who's, now that I look at his record, it's been up and down too. Now that I think about it, the losses to Jim Miller and Anthony Pettis. He also lost to Soteropoulos back in 2010.
Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, yeah, that's right.
And the only wins that he's had, since then, or Kurt Warburton.
Who?
Bitch can't tell me who he is exactly. And Melvin Gillard, and he beat Jamie Varner, who's tough as well. But I don't know. Both of these guys need, or Joe Lozon needs a comeback fight. He definitely needs to win. I don't see the UFC cutting him.
No way.
If he loses his next fight, I don't see the UFC cutting him.
I don't think so.
I really don't know I still don't care about Michael Johnson that much. Like, I just think that this is a case of a good fighter having a bad night. A lot of people said they want to see Joe Lozon versus Nate Diaz because they're both coming off losses, but I don't think that makes any sense either.
Nah, not really. I would like to see them both fight, but I don't think it makes sense right now. What about this?
And they're friends. So I definitely don't want to see.
Let's talk about another fighter in Peculiar Places because we are down to our last 10 minutes here. I want to get to some other fights on this card and some other people that have put themselves in strange spots. Your buddy Uriah Hall. What's going on here? The guy. There's nobody that came out of the Ultimate Fighter with as much hype as this guy. Even after he loses the Ultimate Fighter finale fight, people are still behind him as like this intimidating knockout artist that everybody should be scared of. But he loses to Kelvin, and then he comes out here against John Howard, who, I had Uriah Hall picked for this fight. I figured this was going to be another one of those bouts like in the Ultimate Fighter house where he knocks this guy out senseless. It was made perfect for him. It's a guy that wants to brawl, and we all seen what Uriah Hall does against guys that want to stand and fight against him. But instead, he loses a decision fight. What's going on?
Could be a number of things. First of all, Kelvin Gastelum's a tough kid.
100%.
That kid upset a lot. He said he upset a lot of people on that.
Certainly.
But people are, I think people are a little bit right about Uriah's mindset. About Uriah is one of the nicest people I've ever met. He's a nice guy, and him and Kelvin right now are like best friends. They practically like almost live together. They're training together every day over at Rain Training Center down in Southern California. They both moved out there together, are not together, but they both moved out there and decided to stay out there and train at Rain Training Center. Chael Sonnen as well, amongst a celebrity list of names. But dude, Uriah, I think had he fought Josh Salmon like he was slated to. He went through a slew of opponents. I forget even who his original opponent was, but he pulled out. And then they put in Josh Salmon, and he was excited for that because him and Josh had a little animosity on the show, and he was looking to settle that once and for all. And I legitimately saw him excited and a little bit pissed off almost in training. And I was excited, and then he gets the call that Salmon's out, Josh Howard's in, and he was just like, whatever. And it was like you saw a balloon just deflate almost.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying by that, like kind of emotional. And then it became it's just another opponent. And then he ends up liking John Howard. And when Uriah Hall meets somebody and likes somebody, here's a funny story. I introduced Uriah to Nick Diaz one time. Uriah goes up to "What up, Nick? Nice to meet you." He goes in for one of the, not a high five, but like a shoulder bump, like handshake type thing, right?
Yeah.
And Nick's arm locks. Like, 'cause imagine if you were squaring off with somebody. Like, as soon as his hand shakes Nick's hand doesn't move. He's like a stone. So Uriah tries to come in for like the shoulder bump thing, and Nick's just standing there, and Uriah's like, "Oh, okay," It's like, no one's ever heard that story before, but that's funny stuff.
That's fantastic.
I had to tell it. It just goes to show you, like, Uriah just gets along well with people, and it's just not the time or the place when it's in the cage. I think he's got to learn to shut that off and be pissed off.
Yeah, at this point he does. He needs to find that fire when he steps in there.
But then again, I watched the dude beast it in training, and I know he has no animosity towards these guys in in the gym, especially if he's training with him. And, we posted a video on FightHub.com of him melting a dude with a spinning back liver kick. And he made it look effortless, So I don't know, man. I don't know if he needs to be pissed off. Do fighters need to be pissed off? Who am I to tell somebody else that they need to be pissed off to do a martial art, which, you should stay calm, in my opinion.
Certainly.
But, then again, look at Nick. He gets all crazy and, he's talking shit to the opponents when they're walking up to the arena. So, and that's the type of shit that people love. And so maybe it would benefit Uriah. Maybe you should try it out. Maybe you shouldn't. I don't know, but I hope to God that he gets another opportunity in the UFC because, hopefully the third time's a charm.
I think he will. He'll get another opportunity. He's still, an entertaining guy to watch fight. He just needs to find that level when he gets into the cage. Also on this card, we've already kind of discussed what's going on in Mike Brown's career with his win over Mike Pyle, and we understand that with Uriah Faber winning this Saturday that he and Michael McDonald might meet each other now in the near future because they're both right there at that top contender spot. But what about Alistair Overeem's future now in the UFC? He had so much hype coming into the UFC. He comes in and beats Brock Lesnar in decisive fashion. Everybody's saying this is the guy who's going to dominate the heavyweight division. And since then, he's got busted for elevated testosterone. He comes back from that and gets knocked out by Bigfoot Silva. He comes back from that fight to fight Travis Brown this Saturday. And though he did look strong early on in the fight, he was unable to finish Travis Brown, and then he gets knocked out again. Where does this leave us with Alistair Overeem? Is he a legitimate heavyweight contender? Should he even be fighting in the UFC? Should he just go back to kickboxing?
Absolutely not. He needs to stay right where he's at, fighting the top ranked opponent just like he is. Alistair Overeem has a huge following, and he's in entertaining fights. Even the fight with Fabricio Verdum, where Verdum was flopping on his back, the entire fight, that was still a pretty entertaining fight. The guy's not in really, he's not in snooze fest. He's not coming in and laying on somebody for 3 rounds. So we need to keep guys like that around the sport because he's coming in to kill. And, when he does come in to kill and he didn't get the finish, these heavyweights, you saw it with Shane Carwin and Brock Lesnar, same thing happened. They go in for the kill. That's what people want to see. And all that muscle, it burns out fast. And I thought he got caught with a good kick. But I've seen him go 3 rounds before and, not look like complete trash. So I think Travis Brown's a big guy and that anything can happen in this heavyweight division. And that was right on the button, dude. I think it's just a string of bad luck. But no, I don't think that Alistair Overeem should be going anywhere because any organization would love to have somebody that comes out and has a draw like him and is such a physical specimen. He looks like what every heavyweight, or kid that thinks the heavyweight champ should look like,
Yeah. But here's the thing for you, and this is my personal opinion. Okay, first of all, his chin has been tested and it's failed, I think, countless times. And I know that it's the heavyweight division,
bro.
I know, and I get that 100%. A lot of guys get knocked out in the heavyweight division, but then there's a lot of guys that don't get knocked out. I've seen Roy Nelson take a plethora of shots, and he's half the size of Alistair Overeem, and he's still been able to stand and bang.
He is a freak of nature,
Certainly.
Roy Nelson. You cannot.
He is.
You cannot compare Roy to anybody.
But here's what I'm trying to get at, though.
Give me some other names.
Okay, but here's what I'm trying to get at, though. Alistair Overeem, he's been knocked out twice in a row. On top of that, he's been busted for elevated testosterone. On top of that, he also has a very sizable paycheck that he gets for these fights. I mean, the contract that he signed is having him seeing, big six-figure paydays for his fights that he's losing. Now, for the UFC, is it really worth it to pay this guy all this money that he's been contractually obligated to get when he's losing his fights?
What, Joe? You don't think the UFC can afford it?
I think they can afford it, but is it really worth it? I mean, the heavyweight division, I don't think it's...
They're not... Listen, if the UFC was paying their fighters millions of dollars, or even paying their fighters hundreds of thousands of dollars, like they do in boxing and the undercard fights. Ishe Smith, the boxer, he's about to fight on the undercard of the Mayweather fight. You think that guy would ever fight for 10-10, 15-15, 20-20, anything like that?
No, I get it, man. Boxers get paid a lot, and I'm not even going to dispute that they get paid more than they deserve. But that's not the point.
There's just as many people. They're selling just as many pay-per-views as boxing fights are. They're doing just as many shows, selling out just as many arenas. So
lazy.
Why is it that? Yeah.
I get it. I'm not going to argue. This isn't an argument about money as far as the UFC compared to other sports. What this is an argument about a fighter who's getting paid more than he's actually worth. Because in all honesty, in America...
That's what I'm trying to get at.
In America...
He's worth it. He's a huge draw.
Not in America.
Yes.
Maybe if we were fighting in Japan every 6 months, but he's in America, he's just another name. Alistair Overeem is not that big out here. Yes, in Europe and in Asia and in Japan, he's a much bigger name. But out here, to me, he's just another guy. But unlike all those other guys, he's getting paid way more than them. And he's losing fights, and he's getting knocked out in fights. I just don't think in the heavyweight division there's room for a guy like him that you really don't necessarily need around. I don't think his name is that big. You got guys like Daniel Cormier, Josh Barnett, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos. I mean, the list goes on. Roy Nelson, that all can keep this heavyweight division afloat. You don't need to be paying this guy six figures to be losing fights. That's what I'm getting at.
I tend to disagree because people are going to tune in to see this crazy freak show looking guy fight regardless. Same reason Bob Sapp is still getting fights and he's on a 12-fight losing streak.
Oh, please. Do not bring up Bob Sapp right now. If you're going to compare watching Alistair Overeem to watching Bob Sapp, I don't even want to talk to you anymore. Okay? Bob Sapp is a joke. And I'm not going to say Alistair Overeem is that much of a joke. Alistair Overeem is a competitive fighter. I just don't think
he's one of the best kickboxers in the world, dude. I mean,
he's great. Go back to kickboxing. Sign him to K1. Have him have a future in K1 where he could probably bring that. He could probably, put that sport on his back and take it to another level. But in the UFC, where the best heavyweights fight, I don't think it's a home for him. I think they'll give him one more shot. But unless it's against some slouch, he's probably going to get taken out again. And I think he's on his way out of the UFC. Anyways. Well, let's talk this last and final fight. All right. Tons of hype behind it, mainly because it was two guys in Shogun and in Sonnen who needed to get themselves a victory. And it's telling on where their careers are going to go from here, because both the guys are not getting any younger. They're both a little bit older. And even though Shogun's only 31, the guy's got a lot of miles on him with the wars that he's been in. And Chael Sonnen is, I think, 35, 36, and he's got a lot of miles on him as well, just in age and amount of fights that he's fought. So this is a big fight for both of them. I had been calling that Chael Sonnen was going to win this fight. I said he was going to wrestle him for 3 rounds and win a decision. Did not think that he was going to submit with a guillotine in the first round, Shogun Rua. That's pretty impressive. So I guess what I'm getting at with you...
Called for I called for an inverted heel hook, actually.
That's what you thought was going to happen? Yeah.
Never in a million years.
Okay.
I was just
checking.
That Shogun would be tapped out, especially by Chael pulling guard. The thing Chael said was most forbidden for a man to do is pull guard and wrap his legs around another man on his back.
How insane.
On his back. And sure enough.
So I got 2 questions for you then.
I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was great for the sport. I think Chael really is that good. Shogun really is still that good as well. Smashes most of the fighters in the 205 division. Thought he won the fight against Dan Henderson. He beat Machida, in my opinion, 2 times. A lot of other people's opinion as well. So I don't think this don't think this is a case of age just yet. It's not like Shogun's getting knocked out like Chuck was. That's not happening to Shogun. He got tapped with a guillotine by somebody with enormous arms and a lot of wrestling strength. Yeah. And it was a surprise because, Chael caught him by surprise. I don't think he thought in a million years that Chael would pull guillotine on him and pull guard. And Chael's a tough guy. I'm sure he can squeeze pretty tough, and I don't think any man was getting out of that guillotine that night.
So then, like I said, I have two questions for you then. With this fight ending the way it did, first question, which I'd like you to answer first, is what does this do to Shogun's career? Where does he go from here? And then the other question is, this is now set up a fight between Chael Sonnen and Wanderlei Silva, which apparently is going to go down at UFC 167 as a co-main event. So what's going on now with Shogun's career, and what happens with that fight between Sonnen and Wanderlei?
I'm excited for that fight. Shogun, why Shogun hasn't fought Rashad Evans? They haven't fought, have they?
I don't think so. No, they have not.
That's a matchup I wouldn't mind seeing. But still, he doesn't drop too far in his division. I don't think that, it's not time for him to retire yet, if that's what you're asking. So I'd like to see him fight Rashad maybe, and then as far as Chael and Wanderlei goes, that's going to be exciting. I think I'm looking more forward to the build-up of that fight than the actual fight, but I know once the actual fight comes, it's going to blow the roof off the place, and it should be a main event easily.
Do you think...
But I think Chael wins.
Yeah, certainly. I was saying earlier before we got you on the show, Chael Sonnen makes good work of Brazilian fighters, especially because none of them tend to have any type of wrestling background. And even though he lost twice to Anderson Silva, we have to keep in mind that he did win 5 rounds against Anderson Silva due to his wrestling background. And I think he'll do the same thing to Wanderlei. I think he'll take him down, smother him, confuse him, frustrate him, and end up winning the fight. But Shogun Rua, do you think he should drop to 185, or do you think 205 is where he needs to end his career?
I don't know if he could drop to 185. And I was also thinking, did Rashad Evans drop to 185? Sorry, man, I just woke up and I got stoned a little bit ago, and I'm all over the place. I don't have any notes in front of me or anything like that.
It's all good.
My girlfriend is using the computer in front of me, so...
Rashad Evans, I don't think he dropped. I think Rashad Evans, who did he last fight? God, it's been a while since Rashad Evans stepped into the cage, so I don't even know who he last fought. Or maybe it hasn't.
Yeah, I gotta quit smoking so much pot, apparently, dude. So I can't remember any of this shit, But
I'll tell you right now, Rashad Evans.
You say he's at 205. Like I said, I want to see him fight Rashad Evans at 205. The fight makes sense, and then a couple wins here. He could be right back in the mix. You're only as good as your last fight. That's the way all MMA fans will look at you. And that's the way all critics will look at you, regardless if they say that's the truth or not. So you got to take that into consideration. These guys are the best in the world. It's not like he's losing to a scrub.
Certainly. Well, we've ran a little bit over time, but I personally don't mind because this is usually what ends up happening when you and I get into a conversation about mixed martial arts. And a little bit of heated conversation. I mean, I think we both expressed our differences and opinions about a couple of things, mainly Alistair Overeem. You think he's a big name, but I think he's just kind of big, and that's about it. So, but once again, every Thursday, this is how we do it. For everybody who's listening out there, if you want to get in touch or follow Layzie the Savage, Layzie, can you go ahead and do a quick plug for us?
Yeah, it's Layzie the Savage on Twitter. at Layziethesavage. You can find me on Facebook, same thing, Facebook.com/Layziethesavage. Check my work out, middleeasy.com, as well as Fight Hub TV. Both YouTube channels providing awesome content. Both web pages are a blast to visit every day. So thanks for having me, Joe. Appreciate it.
That's a pleasure, brother. That's my boy right there, Layziethesavage. Phenomenal guy. Like you said, go follow him. He's always out there in the field, up there in personal with the fighters. He gets brilliant work done. And he's almost a mainstay here on the show because he's a good buddy of mine. So he gets me good content, and we always like to have our arguments about, who's relevant and who's not. But anyways, this is The Cage. I'm your host, Joe Sumo. If you want to get in contact with me or find me out there on the interweb, you can get me on Twitter at @TheRealJoeSumo. That is at @TheRealJoeSumo on Twitter. I'm also on YouTube. I will be putting these shows on YouTube, so if you never catch the show on Thursday, you can catch them on YouTube, download them, and use them as podcasts, whatever you like. I'm all over the place. This is Radio Depaul. You stepped inside the cage. We'll be back next Thursday, and thank you for listening.
I wanna make this place